Hello everyone, my name is Wendi Lou Lee and I played the role of baby Grace Ingalls on the television series Little House on the Prairie. And I'm going to put my bonnet on because I am Grace, right? So, here we go. All right. So, I am so excited to be with you today and to just share a little bit about myself and hang out with you. I have lots of fans who love to hang out with me on Thursdays anyway for a Facebook Live, so this is just a whole new platform, and I thank you for welcoming me to the Little House on the Prairie page, and I'm excited to hang out with you today. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about my story. So it all started when I was about 6 months old. My twin sister and I were not looking for an acting job, but one day my grandmother was having lunch with Sue McCrae, who was the casting director of Little House on the Prairie. And they just got to talking, and Sue said they were just having the hardest time figuring out finding twins to play the role of baby Grace. So, well, what happened was she sent a picture over to her husband, Kent McCrae, who was the executive producer, and they sent that picture over to Michael Landon. And Michael Landon said, why don't you bring them in? So my mom drove down to Paramount Studios. She got one twin on one hip, and my sister on one hip and me on the other, and she walked into Michael Landon's office, and he looked at her and he shook her hand and he said, "It's so nice to meet you." And then he looked down at Brenda and I and said, "Wow, these are my girls." And that's how it happened. You know, some people would say that we were in the right place at the right time, that we knew the right people, and to all of that, yeah, it seems so. But for me, I believe that it was the grace of God that gave us the role of baby Grace. And so we played the role for 4 years. We started in season 5 and we went through season 8. And now I know a lot of you guys are going to say, wait a minute, Grace was born at the end of season 4, probably 2 or 3 episodes before the season ended. And yes, that is true. But I will give you a little secret about that. That wasn't us. They actually hadn't found baby Grace yet. And that was a little boy who played baby Grace in those few episodes before season 5. So a lot of people will ask, so I don't remember when baby Grace was. When was that? And the best way to know if baby Grace is on the show is that we played the same time as Albert, Matt Laberteau. So his first episode, as long as we're together in season 5, the first episode is our first episode. So we were always on when Albert was on. So if Matt Laberteau is on screen, all you got to do is look around and you will find baby Grace eventually crying or sleeping or something like that. So yeah. So I have 3 of the most common questions that people ask, and I'm going to hit those first. All right. All right. Number 1 was, what was it like working with Michael Landon? Probably the most common question. And what I have to say is that he was wonderful. Now you have to remember, we were 2, 3, and 4. So for us, what was Michael Landon like? He was kind. He carried us around. He would calm us down, except for if he was feeding us. We'll get to that story later. And he also was kind of like a father figure to us. We just loved him. He was just an amazing man, an amazing actor, amazing producer, writer, everything. He was just incredible. And Little House on the Prairie wouldn't be what it is without him. Obviously, people ask about pranks and all the things that they hear about Michael Landon. We weren't really part of that because we were just so little and just so little and tiny. But for what he was for us was just this calm presence. And there was a time when our very first season, we were trying to get fan mail pictures. And so they put Brenda and I on the wood pile outside of the house. And this is on set. And the photographer that was there trying to get us a picture of us on the wood pile. And of course, like two little 8-10-month-old babies on a sharp stack of wood, it's not necessarily the most comfortable thing in the world. And so we were crying and fussy, and they couldn't get us to calm down. And my mom tells me the story that Michael Landon came over and he just started making faces, and he crouched down there with us, and pretty soon we were smiling and looking right at the camera. And so he just had that way about him. And I think he had that way about him with everyone, especially all the children. They were just mesmerized by him and his facial expressions and just the way that he could capture what he wanted to capture. That picture with Michael is one of my favorites. And so that's a little bit about working with Michael Landon. The second question is, what is your favorite episode? And my favorite episode is from season 5. It's called Dance With Me. And the guest star was Ray Bolger, who played the Scarecrow on Wizard of Oz. And he played the character of Toby No. And he played it a few times in that season. But this particular episode is my favorite. He basically falls in love with this old spinster lady named Miss Cooper. And oh, it's just so funny. And he just is trying to get her attention and make her jealous and all those things. It's my favorite episode. And there's one scene in that episode where I'm sitting in the high chair outside of the house, and Ray Bolger, who Toby No is sitting out there with me and just telling me all about his woman troubles and what he should do, and I don't know, and I'm just kind of sitting there staring into the wind, not knowing what I'm supposed to tell him. Anyway, that is my favorite episode, and I just love the character of Toby No. In fact, I named my son Toby after Toby No from Little House on the Prairie. So that's my favorite episode. My last question is, and I get this one a lot, how much do you even remember? Because we were so little. And so there's 3 things at play here. One is we were on set every day. So there's those kind of subconscious memories. Number 2, we have started watching the show when we were 4 years old. So watching the show over and over and over again, I'm not really sure if I remember it or if I remember watching it, if that makes sense. And then the third thing is just my mom telling me a lifetime of stories about Little House on the Prairie, about things that happened with Pa and with Almanzo and with Melissa, and just all these stories that she would tell us. And so I've got those 3 things in my mind. I've got what really happened on the set, what I watched, and what I was told. And so those 3 things combined are my memories. I'm not quite sure which are which, if that makes sense. So there are the 3 most common questions that people will ask me. Okay, so we played, I've got a plane going overhead, excuse me. So yesterday I was here, I'm at my friend's house who has this adorable covered wagon in her backyard, and it's just amazing. And there was absolutely no sun whatsoever, and I was sitting in the wagon like I was holding the reins, and it was amazing. You guys were going to get this shot of me in this wagon this whole time. It's going to be so good. And then we get here and the sun is out, and so I'm like blaring in the sun, and I'm thinking, this is not going to work. So instead, I don't know if you can tell, I'm in the back of the wagon so that I'm a little bit shaded so that you can actually see me and I won't be squinting the whole time. So that's what happens, right? Live videos, who knows? But excuse the plane is gone now, so I will keep speaking. So after Little House, we were on the show from season 5 through season 8. And then at the end of season 8, that is when the Ingalls family leaves Walnut Grove, and baby Grace has to go with them for some reason. And so our time on Little House was done. I'm going to take off my bonnet. I know it's very sad, but that's what happens when you leave the prairie. So I leave the prairie, and we're about 4.5 years old. And we do what all child actors do, right, when you're done with a huge show, is you have an agent, and your agent wants you to get more work. And so we did an audition for a McDonald's commercial, actually, and didn't get it, mostly because we had never been to McDonald's before, and we didn't know who Ronald McDonald was. So we didn't get that part. The next audition that we did was for a bank. And we did get that commercial. It was our first commercial and our last commercial. My mom just remembers that day being a little stressful, and that the people that were doing this commercial did not know our names and did not care if we were hungry or tired. And she just didn't feel right about it. And so we did that first commercial, and we fired our agent. Not fired him, but just said, we're done. And we went on to kindergarten. So, you know, straight from the sidewalks of Hollywood to kindergarten. And a lot of people will ask me, do you wish that your mom let you keep acting? And most of all, no. I'm actually so grateful that my mom had the wisdom to know that it would be a better life for us away from acting. And so we just lived normal lives. It was probably about 4 or 5 years later. I was probably about 9 years old when we moved out of the LA area, and we moved up to where I live now on the central coast of California. And we just lived normal lives. And I'm so grateful for it. I graduated from Atascadero High School and went away to college. I met my husband, Josh. He's a great guy, and we got married. It will be 20 years in September that we got married, and we have 2 children, a son who is just getting ready to start high school. His name is Toby, of course, and then my daughter is just getting ready to start junior high this just here in a couple weeks. And her name is Reagan Grace. So they each have a little part of Little House in their name, and it's very, very sweet to me. So I have an upholstery business that I do out of my garage so that I can still be a full-time mom and do all those things, but also have some kind of job. So I do that, and I am also an author, which is just so amazing for me to say that. My book is coming out really, really soon, but we'll talk about that in a second. I think maybe what I'll do is, how did I come to write this book? Because there is a whole story in that. So when my daughter was going to kindergarten, we started watching Little House on the Prairie, because that's when you should, right? Because Laura and Mary are starting school, so you should start watching it with your children when your kids go to school. And so that's what we did every Monday night, because Monday nights was when Little House was on when I was a kid. And so we would watch it every Monday night, and I just got to tell you, I was either laughing or crying. I was so enthralled all over again with the show. And I started finding myself, I was like talking like Carolyn Ingalls and giving advice to my kids and telling them to like close the door and and just to be kind and honest and full of integrity, things like that. Anyway, one night, I think we were laying in bed, and my husband said, you know what you should do? You should write a Little House on the Prairie devotional. I thought, oh my gosh, that is such a great idea. And a devotional, because my faith has played a huge role in my life. my whole life. And just talking about the lessons that we're learning while we're watching this show. So I thought, oh, wow, what a great idea. But I have to be totally honest. I wasn't confident enough to do it. I am not nearly as confident as I am today. But that's because God's brought me through a lot in the last 4 years. So that little idea kind of sat in the back of my mind for quite a while. And it wasn't until about 3.5 years ago when I started getting terrible headaches and mental confusion and dizziness. Something was really, really wrong with me. And I was so hopeless. I was so miserable. I didn't know what was wrong. And I just kept praying, oh God, like, help me know what to do. And it took about 6 weeks of living through this for my doctor to order a brain scan, a brain MRI, to check it out. And I remember being in that scan, and I was so scared, and I didn't know what to do. And the only thing that I could do is repeat a verse over and over to myself. And the verse is Philippians 3:10. And it says, "For my determined purpose is to know him, to progressively become more deeply and intimately acquainted with him, perceiving, recognizing, and understanding the wonders of his person more strongly and more clearly." And that's kind of a funky version of Philippians 3:10, but it's so good because what it says is, no matter what happens, the only purpose that I have is to know you more, is to know God more. And so I was just laying there thinking, okay, if this is what it takes for me to know you more, then I'm just going to trust you, and let's do this. And so I said that verse literally through the entire 40-minute scan. And the peace that I had after that was just incredible. About 3 days later, I found out that I had a tumor in the ventricles of my brain, which is basically just right behind my eyeballs, right in the middle. And it was about a tumor the size of a Ritz cracker, kind of the same shape too. And it was there and needing to come out. So I had about a week and a half to prepare myself, my family, my friends, and then I went into surgery. And the people around me were pretty freaked out, and I wasn't. And I think it was because I knew that God was going to do something. And I imagined that maybe God was going to give me this amazing story, but I never really felt like I had that amazing story. And I woke up from surgery a little crazy. The first thing that I did was tell my recovery nurse that I was baby Grace on Little House on the Prairie. So obviously I hadn't lost my memory. She was laughing at me, and she was rolling my bed towards my room in ICU, and I got to see all my friends and my family for just a minute in the waiting room, and they said, "How are you doing, Wendi?" And I said, "This is the best day of my life." And they all were like, "Oh boy." But you know what? It was because God had showed me that He was with me no matter what. And I had a story to share. Now, I will say that about right after I found out about my tumor, I started a blog. And the reason why I started a blog was because I was getting all these people, this wagon isn't very comfortable. I had all these people calling and emailing, and I just didn't know how to keep everybody in the loop. So what I did is I just started writing this blog, and every day I would write about what was going on and the news that had come in and how I was feeling. And you know, I have to tell you, it was incredible because I had never been so brave before. I had never been willing to like say how I was really feeling to people. Like, it was exhilarating. And so I went into surgery just with this openness to just let people in and let people into like the scary and the dark and the happy and the joyful and all those things in between. And so that's how I started writing, was this blog. And it's still on my website, and it's pretty funny and also a little blunt and also really bad grammatically. And if you want to see what the beginning writings of Wendi Lou Lee are, you can see those days, those very first days that I was writing in the hospital, just coming home. You get to see pictures of my staples in my head right there. Anyway, so that is how I started writing. And you know, about 6 months after my surgery, I thought, you know what? I don't know if I want to be a blogger. I just didn't know if that was me. And so I stopped. And then, you know what happened? I just felt like I was just shriveling away. I felt like a plant that was just withering from no water. And it just felt like I was shriveling up. Okay, this isn't going to work. So I started again, but a little bit less than normal. And then I just got the idea to write a book. And when I first started, I thought that I was going to write a memoir because I felt like that was a story I had to tell, my brain surgery story. And so I started that. And if you notice, or if you've read a little bit of my book already, there are some brain surgery stories in there, and some of those are from those first writings. But I was writing it, and all of a sudden, God just changed my path, and the path was to write a devotional. And you know, I knew right away that I was going to use quotes from the show, because that was where I first started getting this idea, and with the lessons and the lessons that Carolyn and Charles were trying to teach their children, and even the lessons of like Nellie Olson and Harriet Olson, the things that they would do are like perfect lessons. So, and writing was like part of my healing, part of my processing everything that happened to me. And it was like the devotional was like telling my personal stories, but with a twist, because there's scripture in it and questions to just think about and reflect on, and also just telling about the goodness of God and the faithfulness of Him when we're walking through trials. Because isn't that what happened on the prairie? Isn't that what happened? Everything was Mary going blind, the grasshoppers, the blizzard, the storm that took Pa's wheat field, you know, James, I always think Jason Bateman, James getting shot. There's just all these things, just all these tragedies that happen, and life is just full of tragedies. And how do we navigate those? And so it was just perfect. It was perfect. And I would say that a Prairie devotional, it is a collection of stories from my life, but also from the episodes of Little House. And it's about the ups and downs of life and how God walks through those joys and sorrows with us. So that's what the book is really about. Somebody asked a question about what the writing process was like. So I'm going to tell you. So the first thing is I had to watch all the episodes. Lucky me. I started with season 1, and I took 1 month. for a month, I just focused on season 1. I watched the episodes, I collected the quotes, I brainstormed the personal stories, I found the spiritual faith lesson or element to it, and then I wrote them. So in January of 2017, is that right? No, January of 2018, sorry, I did season 1. And then February I did season 2, and March I did season 3, and I went all the way up to August, and September is when my manuscript was due. So that is what it took. It was a lot of work. I must say that my son watched almost every episode with me, which is quite a feat, considering that you have to go stop, rewind, forward, stop, rewind, forward, because I had to get every word perfect. And so he was a trooper with me, and he did that. My daughter was always writing me these cute little encouraging notes to just tell me to keep going and you can do it. And my husband, he vowed to do a nightly back rub for me. So I got a back rub every single night. So, and he also just allowed me to just chase after my dream of doing this. And so it was pretty amazing. Let's see. So, I'm going to hold it up for you even. So my release date is August 6th. Here's the book, A Prairie Devotional by Wendi Lou Lee. And I'm very proud of this. It's so beautiful. It's such a pretty book, and the illustrations inside by Stephen Noble are just amazing. He did such a good job. So that is the book. It releases on August 6th, and it is available everywhere. So, and actually I was told that a few fans went to Barnes & Noble yesterday or the day before and actually took it home with them. So you can even get it before the release date, apparently. So that is what happened with the book. I think I have, let me see what time it is, make sure I'm doing good. I'm doing great. I still have a lot of time. So there were a bunch of questions that were submitted, and I'm going to do my best to answer these questions. And, okay, the first question, this is a great one, and this is a question we get a lot too. This was from Bill Barnhart, and he said, do you have any funny stories about Michael Landon? I heard that he was a prankster. All right, so I don't have the stories of, you know, the frog jumping out of Michael Landon's mouth and the funny things that they would do, like keep filming and putting stuff on people's faces while they're laying there, things like that. But I do have one funny story. It's not really something that Michael controlled, but was more what I did. And so I just think it's hilarious. Anyway, so there was an episode where I'm not sure exactly what episode it is, but my best guess is that it is the Halloween episode when Albert and Laura are dressed up like Indians. I don't know if you remember that. And they have the dream. Albert has the dream about it. Anyway, there's a scene in that where Carrie is kind of scared. And then all of a sudden, Grace comes out with like a sheet over her head. And it's this split-second scene. But it's basically like Grace scared Carrie. And I think that's it, because there aren't very many scenes where I am in the bedroom, in Carolyn and Charles' bedroom by myself. And so I feel like that might be it. But anyway, I'll tell you what the scene is. So we're sitting in the bedroom, and you've got the camera crew, and you have Michael, and you have me. And Michael is explaining to me, now, I'm 2 or 3 years old, so, you know, how much can you explain to a 2 or 3-year-old? But he's explaining to me exactly what he wants me to do, and this is kind of what they do. They would say, okay, this is what's going to happen, and this is what we want you to do. And so he says, okay, Wendi, do you understand? And I just looked at him, and I said, no way, Jose. And Michael was like, wait a second. Now, if you don't know anything about Michael Landon, nobody says no to Michael Landon. And so he was kind of like, all right, this kid just said no to me. And all the cameramen are just busting up laughing because he kind of got like put in his place by baby Grace. And so he all of a sudden just kind of, starts laughing too. And I just think it's funny that nobody could say no to Michael Landon except baby Grace. And she didn't just say no, she said, "No way, Jose." So that's kind of a funny story about Michael Landon and just that interaction. This is another story that a lot of people ask about too. And this is from Boone Fan. And it was, why was baby Grace always crying? Yes, baby Grace, she cries a lot. Now, I will say there's two reasons. One is that babies cry a lot. They just do. And babies on TV are still babies. And, babies that aren't on TV, what do? They eat, they cry, they sleep, and they go to the bathroom. Those are like the things that babies do. And babies on TV are the same way. They can be crabby, they can be tired, and I'm sure the lights were hot and bright. And so that's one of the reasons why baby Grace was always crying. The other reason is there was an episode in season 7 called Olsen versus Olsen. And this is the episode where they wanted baby Grace to cry because they wanted to make it seem like Pa couldn't take care of baby Grace and that the only thing that Grace wanted was her ma. And so in order to do that, they also wanted to make sure that everyone knew that Pa's cooking was awful. So in order to do that, they actually put pepper in the oatmeal. And that did not make baby Grace very happy. And so they, that was one of the ways that they made baby Grace cry. And after that, it was really hard for baby Grace to stop crying, especially when Pa was trying to feed her. And so there you go. Boone Fan, there is a story about why baby Grace is always crying. Okay, so there is another one. This question is from LH Berg 85. And it says, can you tell us about any set romances, especially from guest stars and leading cast people? Now, this is kind of a funny question, and I had to maybe just give you a little insight on this, but I was 2 and 3 and 4, so I had no idea what was going on as far as romantic things on the set. And I will say that the cast people, we don't talk about that stuff. I don't think that anybody would want to drag anybody else's name in the mud. And so I don't know if in other people's, I don't think so, but in other people's books if they talk about that, but I don't even know to this day. I've heard that there was some hanky-panky going around, but I have no idea, and I would never want to spread anything about anybody. So there's that question. Sorry that I couldn't give you any juicy gossip. All right, and also LH Berg 85 had another question about twins on the set, and if there were ever times where the twins got in catfights. I do have one story about a fight that my sister Brenda and I got in, and this was our last season, season 8, and we were so excited about this episode that was coming up that was going to be really, really fun and really huge because we had a lot of scenes. And, most of the time, baby Grace is riding in the wagon, walking to town with Ma, sitting in the high chair. And that's it. And this scene this episode we knew was going to be so, so fun. It was the Christmas episode. And we had 4 scenes that we were going to be in. Licking a candy cane, opening a present up in the loft with all the kids cheering for Pa. I know you know all these scenes. You can see them in your head. And then the last one was sleeping on Ma's lap, or pretending to sleep on Ma's lap. So we wanted, obviously, we wanted to do these scenes. They sounded like so much fun. But I will say, we had no interest in pretending to sleep on Ma's lap. That was not a scene we were fighting over. So we were kind of squabbling about it, and I have to tell you, there's no reason to fight on the set, because you don't really get to decide. My mom doesn't get to decide either. It's really just what the producers want and who they think is going to do the best job. So I hate to say it, but Brenda got to lick the candy cane. Brenda got to open the present. Brenda got to cheer with all the kids up in the loft. And I got the sleeping part. That's just how the cookie crumbles. And I remember being pretty upset, watching it anyway, when it came out, being pretty upset, thinking like, that's not fair. Why did that happen? It's not fair. How come she always gets everything good, you know? And it's interesting because that was kind of a common theme growing up, and just not feeling like life was fair. But just that things came really easy to Brenda. And that was definitely a lesson that I had growing up, and just learning to embrace who I am, and that I'm different than Brenda, and that God has a totally different plan for me. So yeah, so that's all about the cat fights. Let's see. Okay, I have a couple other questions. One is, which cast member helped you the most on the set? Now, this is an interesting question. My mom was with us, so I don't know if they helped us, but which one was interacted with us the most, maybe. So when we were really little, we had the most scenes with Melissa Gilbert. She, if you remember, season 5, she's holding us, feeding us. We just have a lot of scenes with her. And she was kind of that big sister age. And so she used to kind of sneak into our dressing room and play with us. And she had told me a story once about how she had taught us our first word. And the word was bead, because we were stringing beads on a string. And she was saying, bead, bead, bead. And finally, I said, bead. And that was our first word. So we hung out with Melissa a lot on set. Now, do I remember a lot of that myself? Ooh, not totally. My mom also tells us that we hung out with the Greenbush twins a ton, Lindsay and Sydney, because they were twins also. And so we did lots of photo shoots with them, you know, the double trouble twins on Little House. And so there were a lot of photo shoots that we did with them, and just playing around. Yeah, so that would be probably who helped us the most, or we had the most interaction with on the set. The other question that someone asked was, do I see the cast now? And you know, probably the saddest part about leaving Little House when we were 4 years old was that we lost contact with the cast. And it's amazing, because about 25 years after we left the show, we were invited to a cast reunion, and we hadn't seen anybody from the show since that last day, or the last goodbye party. We were probably 4.5 or 5 years old. And so we walked into the Hollywood racetrack, which was where we were having this luncheon, and I was like 6 months pregnant with my son, and we were just welcomed by this huge family of cast members. And it was so fun. And that day was the day that everything kind of changed, because we started going to Little House events. That next year, our first event was in 2005, and it was in Tombstone, Arizona. And we went with the cast, and it was so amazing. We were there for probably 5 days. We did that trip. I remember signing my first autograph and thinking, this is insane. I can't believe this is happening. And we also did trips to Beatrice, Nebraska. We went to Keystone, South Dakota. We made a trip to Walnut Grove, Minnesota in 2014. I've been to Kansas at the log cabin site there, and also went to Missouri, to Mansfield, to Lauren Almanzo's home there with some cast members. And then we just went to Walnut Grove. I just went again to Walnut Grove just a couple weeks ago for the 45th anniversary. And I just have to tell you that the time with the cast is so amazing. And I just love them so dearly. And they are like just another family to me. And so just having them in my life just means so much. And the support that they've given me over the last 3 years with my surgery and then writing this book. And I just couldn't be more grateful for the cast family that I have. And yeah, it's been amazing. It's been really, really amazing. So I just have a couple more things to say, because this time is going to wrap up here pretty soon. And that is, how do you connect with me? And there's a couple ways. The first way is through my website, wendyloulee.com. And there is a book page on there. You can read samples of the first, I think, 5 to 10 pages of the book, which is really amazing if you want to just get a little snapshot of it. There's also links to buy the book. I do a monthly newsletter, which just went out yesterday, and I do one every month. And if you want to be on that newsletter list, you just have to subscribe on my website. I also do a weekly blog post, usually a weekly blog post. I do my best to keep that every week. So you can connect with me on my website. That'd be really amazing. The other part is Facebook. So if you're on Facebook right now. So if you want to connect with me on Facebook, Wendi Lou Lee is my profile. I will say that I have reached my friend capacity on my Wendi Lou Lee profile page, our profile, but my page is Wendy Turnbaugh as Baby Grace, and Turnbaugh was my stage name. So, if that makes sense, Wendy Turnbaugh as Baby Grace. That is my Facebook page. If you would like to connect with me there, that would be great. I also do a weekly live video on Thursdays, and they're sometimes really hilarious. One time we were out at the beach and it was hailing on me, and sometimes I'm like cooking in the kitchen or walking my dog, or whatever. Sometimes I have guests with me. My sister's been on with me before. Charlotte Stewart's been on with me before. Allison Angram has been on with me before. So I have, different guests. Oh, my mom was on with me one week, and that was really fun because people got to ask her questions. So I do that on Thursdays, usually at 1 p.m. But sometimes, just check that page and you'll see what time. The other thing is you can connect with me on Instagram, Wendi Lou Lee. I'm there. That's great. I do usually post a little short clip of my live videos on there. And the other thing is that I do have a YouTube channel, and most of my videos end up on there. So if you are a YouTuber and you'd like to do that, you can find me, Wendi Lou Lee, on YouTube. And the last way that you can connect with me is to get a Prairie devotional. Because if you read this book, you really know me. Every single chapter in this book is a story from my life, and you just get this little window into my soul. And so if you would like to know me more, this would be the best place to start. And also, I want to say is that there will be a book giveaway. So you can enter to win a copy of my book. The link to do that is in the comments there that Little House on the Prairie is posting. So go and enter to win, and I will send you a book, or the publisher will send you a book. I'm not sure how that works. Don't quote me. And that would be great. So anyway, I hope that you've had a really great time today. I have totally enjoyed. I'm sorry that you didn't get to see the front of the wagon, but hey, we got the back of the wagon. So I hope you have a great day, and thank you for your support, and thank you for loving Little House on the Prairie, and God bless you. Goodbye.